Hi,
Hi,
Nicholas.
Again.
Hi, Nicholas.
Nice to see you. It's nice to meet you. I am Nicholas from Italy and I write for Tom Sawyer Italy. So if I will begin. My first question is for Arabella. And the question is, how did you go about casting Still Up? Was it difficult to find suitable interpreters for the various parts so as to create the right chemistry on set?
I mean, we took our time, we didn't rush it, but actually when I think we were all pretty unanimous when we landed upon the ideas of Antonia and Craig, and there was a kind of instant sense that the two of them would bring something very special to these parts. And then it emerged after we had talked to them and their agents individually that actually they were really excited to work together. So they'd met each other a few times and had kind of held a secret wish to do a project together. So actually there were qualities that we were looking for in our cast for these particular roles, and each of them had that brilliantly. Paul, I don't know whether you want to talk about what each of them brings to it.
No, I mean, they're very different characters, and actually Craig and Antonia, very different backgrounds as actors, and Craig has done a lot more film and some comedy, but I think they each brought into the room something of the character with them, and that was very obvious. I think Craig has a kind of nervous energy about him, and I think Antonia just captures that kind of conflicted character with lots of choices in her life, and I thought she was really brilliant at doing that.
Okay, thank you. The second question is for Schlesinger. In the TV series, we see two people who are almost interdependent on each other. How important is the relationship between love, attraction, and toxic addiction in Still Up?
Say that last bit again, Nicholas. How important is
the relationship between love, attraction, and toxic addiction in Still Up?
Gosh, that's a very good question. I mean, we call it an almost romantic comedy. That's the sort of subtitle, the strapline. And I guess it's as much about friendship as it is about romantic love. Because the relationship starts out as friendship, quite an intense friendship. They're people who help each other as friends do. But during the course of the series, obviously, things evolve into something that could be romantic, love, and indeed that's always under the surface. It's sort of buried under the surface in the show, and that's part of the tension, I think, is are they going to remain friends, or at the audience we hope will want them to connect at a more fundamental level. But obviously they each have things in their own life that kind of put a handbrake on that. So in a way, we needed those characters to encapsulate the potential of romantic love, but actually what keeps it sustained is the friendship and the quirks of that friendship.
And I could add to that, actually, because the addiction part is really interesting, that question, because it sort of poses the question later on, are they addicted to just talking to each other late at night? Or is that a real attraction? Can they not talk to each other later night? And as Paul said, there's many types of love in this show, and what do you need and what's enough is also part of the mix, I think.
Yeah,
I think it's the different
good
types
point
of love that make it so hard for both of them, because Lisa particularly feels very responsible towards Veggie, who is the partner that she's with at the moment, who is a very kind, nice man. And she, her first priority for 5 years has been her love for her daughter. And yet, right at the beginning, she loves Danny as a best friend. And then it's all about, it's a very intelligent question. It's all about how there are shifting priorities between those different types of love and dependency.
Yeah.
Thank you. The third question is for Phil. And in addition to the relationship with others in the series, now the series also highlights a fundamental truth of our present, our technology dependence. Was it a deliberate theme or a totally random narrative choice?
Yeah, well, good question. Well, it's certainly a show that couldn't have probably worked 15 years ago. If you're, in Insomniac, you're on the phone and you're at home and that's it. So there's definitely, this story is liberated by technology, by modern technology. They can go out and about and do things that perhaps you couldn't have done and kept in contact in the past. And in fact, we were talking about this the other day, because now, not so long ago, if you were walking down the street, apparently talking to yourself, people would think you were bonkers. And now I walk down the street and everybody appears to be talking to themselves, walking down the street, animated conversations. So that's very much part of this show, that what technology has done. But also it emphasizes that, there's a sense of loneliness in this show as well. There are two people who are separated, one by anxiety, one by circumstance, and that we have all these things in our life now, in our modern life, and yet, loneliness is still a real thing. It's a very important thing, and a sort of almost a thing that's almost increasing with technology as opposed to decreasing, weirdly. So we do reflect that. The show does reflect that. It's a nice growing sense of community you sort of get as the series advances around Craig's flat, and you sort of start to get a sense of a little community in that flat. But yeah, it deals with loneliness as well as love. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. My last question, if I can,
I'm so sorry, we're gonna have to wrap there. We've been over the 5 minutes now.
Okay, so
Yeah,
that's a shame.
Oh, sorry, Nicholas.
That's a shame.
Thank you for everything. So
Thank you,
bye.
Nicholas.
Thank you very
Bye,
much.
Nicholas. Great
Bye.
questions.
You're driving me crazy.